It is my great pleasure to talk to one of the people who I love the most from his legacy of work in the industry, the great Ron Gilbert.
Thank you.
We're going to talk about The Cave coming out early next year. Let's get the first thing out there, that the perception originally that it was a platformer is incorrect. This really is your real wheelhouse, which is the adventure game.
Yeah, it is an adventure game. There is running and there is jumping in the game. But those really, primarily I wanted to put that stuff in the game just to make movement through the world fun. Because I think that is one of the things that kind of classic adventure games suffered from a little bit, was walking around the world was a little bit boring to do. And so I wanted to do something that was just fun as you're just moving around the world.
And let's talk about the game. It is kind of reminiscent of some of your earlier work where you have sort of a whole litany of characters that you can play with, all of which has different skills, and you sort of apply them to the various problems at hand. What kind of brings them all together?
What brings them together is this cave. They're all kind of here to explore this strange, dark, sentient, talking cave. Something has just beckoned them all to this place, and it's kind of why they're there. And as the player, you start out with these 7 characters, and you choose any 3 of them that you want to go into the cave with.
And it is very much consistent, I think, with your style of humor. And what I've always enjoyed is there's kind of a deliberate arbitrary quality to everything. Yes, of course there's a hillbilly and an explorer and a monk. Right. They're all hanging out in a talking cave. Somehow it's acceptable.
As they do.
Now, the structure of the game, obviously we got to play the carnival level today. It seems that you sort of have these sort of self-contained levels, but within that, sort of the order in which you solve the various puzzles to move on is kind of at the player's own experience or how they want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, there are these areas of the game, like the carnival that you've seen, but they're really not levels. I mean, the whole game is a completely endless streaming experience. So you're not really kind of going, ooh, the carnival level, now I'm going to go do it. You're really just kind of making your way down this cave, and you just kind of hit these weird little strange areas like the carnival or the underground missile silo and all those. And so the game is kind of non-linear in a kind of a local scope. Like there's lots of stuff to kind of go back and forth and do, but I do want to kind of keep everybody moving down, right? You really want to go down deeper and deeper and deeper.
What's at the bottom of the cave?
So there is this point where I do want to kind of push everybody farther down, but let them have a lot of kind of back and forth play as they're going down.
It really must be tricky. What do you sort of start with first? Sort of like the puzzle, and then make the puzzle adapt to the character, or do you? I mean, I can't imagine sort of in what order you start to build this out.
You kind of build. I think adventure games. Whenever I've designed adventure games, I kind of start with this one core. I call them the backbone puzzles. These are the major puzzles that kind of beat the game forward. Then from that point, it's really just about sticking stuff onto them. And that's a very organic process. And you're just coming up with weird ideas and saying, okay, well, we need a little puzzle here. Now we need another puzzle, maybe another puzzle. No, too many puzzles, take that one out. And so you're just kind of going through figuring all that out. And then with the 7 characters, since we wanted each of the 7 characters to have some special skill and some unique way that they can solve puzzles, then we had to layer this whole other set of kind of puzzles that, okay, well, she can solve this puzzle, but he can't solve this puzzle, but we still need to make sure the game is actually playable. So no matter what 3 characters you pick, you always have to be able to make it to the end. That was a huge challenge, but a lot of fun, in designing it.
The puzzles, obviously, that's the core of any adventure game. And what really struck me when I was playing it is they feel so solvable. There's always been kind of an issue where sometimes when you're playing adventure games, they have these puzzles. You're having to kind of figure out the mind of the person who designed it that may not necessarily be consistent, and then you really could have a stopping point for the game.
Right.
I mean, how do you sort of approach them that they offer a challenge, but they're not so oblique as to just alienate most people out there?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's a magic formula to that. It's just something you just kind of have to feel, as you're doing the puzzles. And adventure games should really always be about the player versus the game, never the player versus the game designer.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of adventure games, kind of at that kind of end of their heyday, really became these battles where you felt like I was battling the game designer and not the game. And I think that's kind of the wrong way to go about that stuff. And, so you just, you want puzzles where where, you know, a certain set of puzzles are really easy for a certain set of people, but another set are hard for them. But it's almost the exact opposite for a different set of people, you know? So it's like, if you can kind of get that, you know, everybody's got a little bit of a challenging thing and a little bit of an easy thing. You know, there's the easy ones that just kind of keep them coming back to the game. There's the challenging ones that they feel really good when they, you know, finally solve that puzzle. But yeah, so it's just kind of a balance of that stuff. And I think that's where the couch co-op really comes into play. You know, because you've got two brains working on this problem, and some people may think of something the other person didn't think of.
Obviously, as someone who has been making adventure games, you know, especially in the heyday of it, I was curious what you thought sort of happened where they kind of fell out of favor. It was very rare to actually be seeing them. I think we've seen a resurgence in the past few years, but sort of, you know, how you kind of describe the life cycle of the first generation of adventure games.
Yeah, I think adventure games, it kind of got to this point where there was this other type of gaming just started to take over, you know, and in some ways, I mean, I jokingly say I blame Doom for the downfall of adventure games, because Doom came out and it was this very completely different type of game on your computer, and it attracted a very different group of people. And adventure games never died. I mean, we were selling just as many copies of adventure games, you know, in the year 2000 as we sold in 1990, but other games were just going through the roof in terms of sales. And I think it was just opening it up to this very, very different audience of people that liked things that were more action-oriented. You know, they wanted that action part of stuff. But I think we're kind of seeing full circle now, because games are something that's becoming very mass market. Everybody plays games. It's not just a weird niche of people in their basements playing games. It's everybody. I mean, I take the train to work, and half the people on the train are playing games the entire way. You know, adults playing. And what that's doing is it's opening up this whole new kind of avenue of games for people. And I think a lot of people will like adventure games. And I think they do, because adventure games are about story and they're about characters. They're not about twitch, they're not about fast action, they're just kind of about thinking and mulling your way through stuff, which I think has a lot of appeal to people.
I'm interested, obviously the cave is going to be available PC and all the consoles, but do you see new opportunities with tablets and with all these new ways that we can play games? Do you see that kind of reinvigorating not just the access to adventure games, but adventure game design?
Yeah, I think it is. I think tablets are wonderful because they're mobile. You know, people carry with them, and all those people I talked about on the train playing games, they're playing them on their phones or on their iPads, and I think that really does just kind of broaden, you know, that market up a lot for games. But I think it does mean that we have to think about games a little bit differently, because, you know, it's rare that people are going to spend 5 hours playing a game on their phone. You know, games on phones and mobile devices are these kind of games of opportunity. It's like, I have 15 minutes waiting at the doctor's office and I want to play a game. So, you know, as we move, you know, adventure games onto those platforms, I think we need to be very conscious of that. We need to make sure the adventure games are paced in such a way that having a 15-minute bite-sized piece of the game doesn't feel like you're leaving it, but it feels that there's some satisfaction to it.
All right, well, the Cave is coming out, the Wii U, 360, the PS3. It's also available on PC, and it's early next year?
January.
I cannot wait. It was a lot of fun playing it. Thank you so much for your time, Ron.
Thank you.
All right, if you want to learn about the Cave or any other game, you know what to do. Subscribe. Go to youtube.com/Rev3Games. You can also subscribe at iTunes, and of course, you can go to revision3.com.